episode purpose: to honor Black history, visibility, and impact, starting in Arizona and expanding globally while affirming that Black history is living, present, and powerful.
When people think about Black history, Arizona usually isn't a part of the conversation. And that silence is exactly why today's episode matters.
Welcome, listeners, to Thriving Loudly podcast.
I'm Trinice.
And I'm Aisha. And Thriving Loudly is the podcast where we help you break imposter syndrome, release survival mode, and build the mindset required to actually win in life, relationships, business, and visibility. So to tie into this episode and what we are going to be highlighting today, we are going to be talking about Black history. We're going to be diving into Black history in Arizona. And one of the reasons why is because we both live in Arizona. I am born and raised here. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and, currently live in Phoenix. And yeah, we're going to be highlighting a little bit about that. Trinice here, she moved to Arizona a few years ago, but she's originally from Wisconsin. So we kind of have a little bit of a similar background, growing up in white spaces. And so we're really excited to kind of dive into this episode today.
Absolutely. All right. So we are going to kick it off. So oftentimes, when people think about Arizona, they look at it as like a newer state. They think of it as like more of a transient or retirement destination, or, a place where Black roots are not really deep. But you'll be surprised. There's actually a lot of history here, when it comes to, Black people, even dating back, I think, from, starting in 1905, which we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. Did you learn about Black history while growing up in Arizona? Like, was that a thing?
We learned about general Black history. As far as just Black Arizona history, not so much.
Okay.
I mean, even like talking to my family members, not too much history in Arizona when it comes to, there is history here, right? There were settlers here. There were people that migrated to Arizona during the Great Migration. But there really wasn't a highlight in school about Black Arizona history as much as I thought. And just for you listeners who don't know, Arizona currently is about 5.8% Black. The entire state. So very small Black population, but over the course of the last decade, it has grown. And the Black population here is actually one of the fastest growing Black populations growing and people coming here, that I think one of the fastest in the US. So it's growing here. We're growing, we're out here, we're coming out here. It's great for myself because I grew up here. There really wasn't many of us, anywhere. There wasn't even Black spaces, so it's really cool to see how specifically Phoenix has progressed. I know Tucson is starting to slowly progress too. But yeah, how about you? Did you learn about?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I rarely heard about people, Black people, living in Arizona. Had a few friends, that lived out here, and maybe like one or two family members that have been out here for years, like 20 plus years, but you don't really hear too much about, the history of Arizona and, Black people living here. But I do have some fun facts that I want to share with you guys on Arizona's history that I think that is, fascinating. And just to give you guys a little bit more of background on Arizona. So Black people have been a part of Arizona since the late 1800s. We didn't just arrive here recently. This didn't just happen within the last 10, 20 years. The first African-American family arrived in Mesa in 1905. In 1912, Dunbar School opened in Tucson, known as a colored school. And this was named after the African-American poet Paul Dunbar. So this was the first school in Tucson, the first school for colored Black people in Tucson. And then also in 1920, Washington Esco, hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly, Escobedo Heritage Neighborhood, referred to as Northtown, constructed the first housing suburb to welcome Black home buyers. So that was in 1920. In 1926, Phoenix Union Colored High School opened. So that was the first high school for, colored people. And then also in 1945, Viora, I believe, E. Johnson became the first Black principal in Mesa. So those are just some fun facts about, Arizona and, how it's grown over the years and, the Black history. If you guys are interested in learning more, I did pull that off of Arizona PBS. That's a really good website that has like a lot of educational things when it comes to like all things, Black people in Arizona.
I really like that. And I'm glad you kind of touched on that. A couple of those facts I did know, which is surprising. Okay. Yeah, the Tucson stuff, because I'm from Tucson. But no, it's great to learn about that. We've been out here. From my background, my parents are also born and raised from Arizona. So my grandparents, I believe, were part of that big migration that happened between 1910 and 1970 is where there was a huge great migration out to the West. When we're talking about what the U.S. Black population is, 10% of the U.S. Black population lives on the West Coast. Wow. So this is a 2023 study, while 56% live in the South. And about 17% live in the Midwest and Northeast. So knowing these facts and, understanding how little of the population of the Black population lives out here. What are your thoughts about that? Especially you coming from the Midwest, obviously you still didn't really have a lot of representation out in Wisconsin, but is there any differences you've seen coming here to Arizona versus Wisconsin, where maybe you saw a little bit more, you were kind of, exposed to more Black culture?
I think living in Wisconsin, I was exposed to a lot more Black culture just because we're so close to Chicago. So Chicago is only about an hour and a half drive away. And so I think that there's a lot of crossing and mixing between, Wisconsin and Chicago that kind of brings in a lot of culture. Compared to here in Arizona. I also think the difference is because Arizona is a newer state as well, is not as established. There's not a lot of culture here versus Wisconsin. I'm not sure when Wisconsin was established, but there's a lot more culture. We have our different neighborhoods that's like, Black centric, and, it's like these are like the Black hubs and things like that. Kind of almost reminds me like of a mini Detroit or so. Like it's very similar to Detroit, parts of Milwaukee. So I would definitely say I've been exposed more, I feel like, living in Milwaukee and being born and raised than here in Arizona. But still small populations. Majority of the Black people live in either Milwaukee, a sprinkle in Madison, a sprinkle in Green Bay, and sprinkle maybe Racine, Kenosha. There's only like maybe about 5 states that Black people actually live in out of, I believe it's 60 states. The rest of the states is predominantly, white people.
Wow.
Yeah. So pretty similar to here, once you get out of Phoenix, once you get out of Tucson, it's like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true.
It's a different story. So very similar in that way, for sure.
Yeah.
Why do you think that representation matters? Why do you think that it's important for us to, just even highlight this and speak about Black history?
I think it's important because, obviously, a lot of people assume that there isn't Black history in Arizona, that there isn't any culture, which, I do agree that it's not the South culture, it's not the East Coast culture, right? But there is culture here. There are people that, established and settled, and they became, some of the firsts. Obviously, it's not as prominent as, being on the East Coast, but there is that. And maybe the culture is different because the way people had to adjust and almost assimilate is very different, and I think that's kind of the difference. But I think it's important to have the representation because we are out here, and I think a lot of people are I'll get, DMs, from my social media, because I do a lot of, local content and things to do in Arizona. And I'll get people that DM me that want to move out here, and they're like, how is it? Am I, what's the vibes out there? And I think my voice does matter, because it shows that, you can thrive out here, right? You can, things can be good. And so I think that does matter. I think it's to show that, we're out here, we're growing, people are building businesses, communities are growing, Black spaces are growing, which has been super fun to see, because that wasn't a thing 10, 15 years ago, when I was in college and, in my early 20s. So it's really cool to see how things have evolved. And I think now that we're seeing these, Black spaces immerse, it's, inspiring and motivating other people to actually move out here and come out here, or people who are taking jobs out here to understand, like, it's okay, I can have these spaces. They're small, they're mighty, and you might have to do a little bit of research, It's not, like in the South and on the East Coast, it's like, you're just, it's there. You're exposed to it. You don't really have to be like, where do I go? What, where are these things at? What's popping? But here you're going to have to find those spaces, right? Which is a little bit different versus being, on the East Coast.
And speaking of those spaces, I do want to highlight a few Black associations here in Arizona. We do have the Black Chamber of Arizona. We also have the Greater Phoenix Urban League. We have the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and we also have Arizona Coalition of Change. So those are different associations that you can always join if you're looking for, community or, advocacy. They're always doing, different things to advance the community and make sure that we do have representation out here, which I think is really important.
Absolutely.
And that's another reason why we started this podcast also was to kind of shed light on, not just African-American people, BIPOC people in general, but really to kind of highlight us and, get people on the couch that we could talk to, and, others can learn about their stories, so that people can see, like, hey, there's things going on in Arizona, Black people are thriving, and you can do this as well.
I agree. I agree with that.
So there's a lot of great stuff going on here, guys.
Yes,
it's progressive.
It's starting to get kind of, I'm not going to say fully popping out here, but it's starting to pick up, like just even a lot of the Black events happening this month for Black History Month. I mean, there's so much. And I've been kind of actively sharing in my broadcast channel and on, whenever I can on stories, and I plan to do some stuff this month as well to share those fun events with everybody. So I'm excited. It's a good time. It's a good time to be out here, right? It is.
And yes, so speaking of that, it's a good time to be out here. Like I had said in our first season, one thing that I enjoy about living here is the opportunities, right? Because there's not a lot of us, there's so much that you can do. There's so much white space. There's so many things that you can create. You can be the first of, like the Lit Twist is the first African-American mobile bookstore. It's like, wow.
And she's doing great.
She's doing great.
She is doing amazing. We're excited to have her as a future guest, but she's doing amazing. When I first met her, like a year ago, and I told her, I was like, this is so great. I can't wait to highlight this. And it ended up really, video popped off, and it really just progressed her even further, because people are like, wow, this is amazing. No one's done this. And so it's very possible. I have one friend particularly, she's an influencer herself. She used to live in Atlanta, where, their influencing scene out there is huge, especially for Black women. The Black luxury influencer, it's a huge thing out there. And she's just like, it is so competitive out there, because there's so many of us doing it, which is great. But she came out here and she gets so much more opportunities because there's not many of us. So she can actually shine as a creator. But, then there's obviously limitations to that as well. Being a Black creator or person of color, because there's not a lot of us.
Right.
But that just leaves the door open for us to step into those doors and, make waves. And it's really an exciting time for sure.
Yeah. What has been your experience being a Black content creator here in Arizona?
So I've been creating content for well over a decade. And when I first started, especially getting into like the Instagram influencer scene, this was back in like 2017, when I created my Instagram page. Before then I was blogging. I didn't see a lot of women out here doing the lifestyle content, doing the fashion content, going on my Instagram feed back then. I didn't see that. I saw, women that were blonde hair, blue eyes doing it and, doing the whole thing, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I just didn't see a lot of representation of me. I couldn't see myself in other people.
Yeah.
So it was a new territory. I went into some of these events being the only one that was black, and that, it was hard in the beginning to see that. But the good thing is I've seen it progress so much where there's so many different people, walks of life, different skin colors, shapes, sizes, being invited to these events and going to these things. And I think it's really an exciting time. But yeah, it was, it's definitely different back then because I didn't see people that looked like me. But yeah, that's kind of where I feel it. Yeah, I was like, it just was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So let's dive a little bit into your background. I know you're born and raised in Arizona. So how has it been growing up in Arizona? Like even just from a child to now, how was grade school or grammar school, as some people call it?
Yeah. Obviously I always knew I was different, didn't look like a lot of my friends. And I think for a while, like many probably, people that grew up in a white space, you kind of have this like weird identity crisis a little bit. Like you want to have the straight hair, you want to have the pretty eyes. I had I used to wear contacts, like colored contacts. I was like a teenager. I was like 16 to 18, 19, something like that. Because I wanted light eyes. Like I wanted, I felt like that was the standard of beauty, right?
But that was a thing back in the day.
But it was.
I wore contacts too at some point.
I wore the pretty colored contacts. I just thought it was cool. But I did struggle for a little bit, but I never really saw myself fully as an outsider because my friends accepted me. I had really good friends, a really good, even though I was more on the shyer, introverted side. My friends loved me. I never really had issues in school, or I never really experienced racism. To my knowledge, so what I felt like it was, I don't know, but I just never really had any standout scenarios or situations where I felt like heavily discriminated against or anything. I overall had a pretty good childhood growing up to where I felt accepted and I felt like I could do anything. And I think that, also came down to my grandparents and my parents. They never said, oh, because you're a black girl, little black girl, you can't do anything. They really inspired me to be like, you can go to college, you can do these things, you can have this, you can, and so that really put my mindset on like, okay, if I want to start this, I can do it. Or if I wanted to start a blog, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. And so I didn't really let my identity and my race hold me back. I saw it as an opportunity to be like, oh, they don't have anyone that looks like me. Let me apply. Let me do it. And so I ended up being a part of this in college. I went to the U of A. I was part of the Tucson 12, which was like, they say the top 12 girls in college. So funny. I'll have to share something eventually about that. But, but I was like, yeah, they don't have any girl that looks like me. I'm going to do it. And so it really just motivated me to fill that space versus be like, oh, there's no one that looks like me. This is going to hold, this is going to hold me back. So, I always felt it was an opportunity for sure. That's How about you growing up and in Wisconsin and to now?
Well, it's definitely shaped me. I mean, I'm trying to think of how I could say this. It's so weird how I identify being an African American or Black woman. I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm preppy or anything like that, but I'm kind of in between, right? I'm like that safe Black girl. And I know it's because I grew up in Wisconsin, so very much used to just being in white spaces, and pretty much have kind of adapted that because I've seen that my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And it's helped me to not look at race and not, judge people for their skin color or anything like that, just because I've seen life in a different worldview versus growing up in like a Atlanta or Chicago or something like that. And then living here, kind of seeing the same worldview. I think it's kind of kept my perspective the same. But I don't know how to really describe. I don't know how to really describe it.
I feel that, yeah.
Yeah, but
I understand. Yeah, and I feel like it's tough because we can have a very similar experience, but I also just kind of started to accept the fact, obviously we're not a monolith. We're all different. We have different backgrounds, but I feel like society and the media says like all Black people have the same experience and this is how it is for every single person and this is what it is. And I feel like, I'm starting to accept like that's really maybe not the case for everybody. We're all different. We have different upbringings, different parents, different education backgrounds, all these differences that I feel like we have to be more open and accepting that like all of us are very different and that's what makes us amazing and that's what makes us great. And it's just something I've learned to kind of sit with recently over the last few years. Like, okay, like maybe I'm not this person who grew up here and had this experience and this is what my life was like. I'm Aisha from Tucson and this is how I grew up and this is what my experiences were. And I've been more accepting of that because I feel like I was kind of fighting that a little bit, especially like in my 20s, just really fighting that. And I've learned to accept that I am different, but we're all still Black women. We're all still the same.
Exactly.
It's just we just maybe have different experiences, different life perspectives. I don't know.
That's kind of where I'm at. That's why I'm like my identity. It's changing, because I can't even tell you. I don't know how I identify as a Black woman, because I'm so different. Like I said, I didn't grow up in the South, so I don't have that Southern twang and, I grew up in the North, but I'm also still, pro-Black as well, so it's like, but it's hard for me to identify because someone from the South would be like, oh, she's like, this preppy Black girl that probably grew up in the suburbs. And it's like, no, actually I grew up in the inner city. I didn't, So I just chose like, this is just who I am because of my environment, and so I think I'm still just trying to figure out who am I, as a Black woman, because that's always changing. Right.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm in the same boat where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'll get comments from time to time where people will, say, oh, well, she doesn't know anything. I don't know why she's talking about this topic. She talks like a white girl. What does she know? And, those comments are very hurtful because at the end of the day, if someone sees me, they're going to see me as a Black woman. They're not going to be like, this girl, like they're going to see me as I am. And so it's still at this big age of being in my 30s like that, those comments do still affect me a little bit because I'm like, I'm still a Black woman. I'm still, people are going to see it. Every other race is going to see me as this Black woman, but then I'm not accepted by maybe the masses of the Black population because maybe
you don't sound like them or
have their same experiences. But I think I'm still a Black woman and, I just maybe grew up somewhere different. Right. And I think that's just what it is. And that's hard.
And just learning to accept it.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, I've had different experiences and that's okay.
Exactly. Yep. So tell us a little bit of background of like just your family. How did they get to Arizona?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, my parents are born and raised here. So they grew up also in a time where it was probably similar, but very little bit different from me. They're Gen X. So they grew up in like the 70s, 80s. Both my parents graduated in like the 1980s, like my mom 85 and I think my dad like 83. So their experiences were very similar to mine, as far as, growing up in white spaces and, navigating, being like one of a couple in your class. And so, I think what they taught me is like, hey, you can do anything. Like, we did this, like, you can do it too. Like, they never been like, oh, you're in this space, you better prepare to not have these opportunities or this. They're like, they kind of had the mentality of like, you got to rise above. And so I think that just was instilled in me from, an early age to rise above and be like, hey, like, you can do anything. My grandparents, my mom's adopted, so I don't know too much about her biological family, besides the fact that they, opened up beauty shops. Like, there was one, I think her mother was like, opened up one of the first like Black beauty shops out here in Phoenix.
Okay.
And also, I know her biological dad did a lot of stuff out here. She came from an entrepreneurial background, like with her biological parents. Her adopted parents, they are from Texas, and they came here in the 1960s. So they were part of that great migration.
Okay.
My grandfather was military, so he was in Vietnam, and they settled here in Tucson. My dad's side, kind of same thing. Obviously, he's born and raised from Tucson. And my grandparents on his side came from like Tennessee and kind of a little bit of the South, a little bit Tennessee, Alabama. I have, family out that way, like aunts, cousins, like second, third cousins. But yeah, my immediate family, like aunts, uncles, born and raised from Arizona. So, yeah. And they all kind of like, ironically, a lot of them are like, they date interracially. They're all in interracial like relationships. Not all of them, but a lot of them have like, I have like a lot of like mixed like, why am I blanking out right now?
Cousins?
Mixed cousins. Yeah, a lot of my cousins are mixed. And so like, I have a very blended family. Which is, that's just kind of how I grew up around a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures. So it wasn't like abnormal to see a lot of that growing up as well. Yeah.
I think that's pretty common. And when you grow up in, white spaces and white states, I know it's like that in Wisconsin and a lot really in the Midwest where there's a lot of interracial dating. I grew up my entire life seeing that. I have some cousins too that are biracial. So I think, that's pretty common.
Okay, so we're going to kind of dive into just dating in Arizona. We kind of talked about dating in our last episode, but dating as a Black woman, and how the dating pool is a little bit smaller out here, especially with the population being like under 10% Black. So for you, Trinice, how has that kind of shaped your dating life being out here, as a Black woman coming from Wisconsin, and the dating pool, especially? I know it's hard for Black women seeking Black men.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm like, that's like non-existent.
Yeah.
It's been tough. I'll be honest. I think this has been the only place, and this has been the only city in my life where it's been like hard to date here. Like the Black guys, they're not really checking for the Black women. The guys that are checking for me are honestly like the middle-aged white guys. Like, I must have like a billboard on me because I'm like, that is who are looking for me. But yeah, my experience out here has been very weird. When I first got out here, I did date this guy for like a year. I just met him in my neighborhood one day. So that was just like sporadic. I've been on the dating apps and just not really, not anybody that, I could really see myself with. So yeah, I haven't really dated here because my experiences have not been good. When I was on the dating apps, I went on 2 dates with this guy and this Indian guy actually. The first day was great. We went out to eat, and also we went to the movies afterwards. And then the second date, it just got weird. He was just looking for one thing, and I was just like, yeah, no, this is not gonna work for me. And I've kept the door open, but I don't know. The black guys out here are just so weird. They're weird. I don't.
Yeah,
it's a different type of vibe, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I
Like-
would have to say I've experienced that too.
Mm-hmm.
It is, or I mean, I.
And then they're quick to ask you too, are you biracial? And it's like, do I have to be biracial in order for you? You know, like, no, I'm not biracial, actually. You know, like,
Yeah.
it's weird.
Yeah. I mean, to find black love out here, you really have to be intentional and fight your way into these black spaces and like and get into those spaces because it's almost like if you're moving to Arizona and you're looking for black love, it's going to be hard unless you're open to being open-minded and kind of expanding out of that, because it is a very small dating pool, if that's what you're looking for. And, you know, I tell women all the time, you know, who ask me about that, it's like, you kind of have to come out here open-minded to anything and everything.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, if you are looking for a black man, you're
You're gonna have to get him from a different city.
or
The
fresh
guy I'm
off the
talking
boat,
to
fresh off the plane.
does not live here. He lives in Chicago. Like, you got to pull him from somewhere else and bring him in, or
fresh off the plane, meet him like within probably 30 days if he's been out here. Because once he gets out to Scottsdale and goes to Old Town,
it's over.
it is over.
Yeah.
he's out there.
Yeah. That's sad, but
yeah. I mean, it is hard unless you want to expand out of that. If you're open-minded and you're willing to date outside your race, you'll have an easier time. But I mean, even then, it's still tough.
Yeah.
so it's like, even then, it's like, I mean, dating in general is tough, no matter who you are and where you're coming from. But I definitely do encourage women, if they're coming out here looking for that, you may have to just be a little bit more open-minded or be very intentional finding those black spaces, which is great because there's so many clubs. Like there's like the Black AZ Run Club. There's like so many black events, associations where you can meet those people. But you have to be intentional going to those places and those spaces for sure.
You do. Well, I will say, even when going back to like dating, like in Scottsdale, that's a whole nother animal. I was out. I went to Barbino?
Bar Bambino, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I went there with my girlfriend like last month, and that was crazy. There was like so many like older white gentlemen in there, and they were just like aggressive, like touchy-feely, but then also kind of seemed like they were into each other. I don't know. It was weird. It was a very weird crowd. Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't think this is for me.
Yeah. Scottsdale is a
like,
weird place.
What are we doing over here? Yeah. And what are you on too? Like, what's going on?
Old Town in general, I feel like has become very touristy, to where you're seeing all these like people coming from out of town. They're thinking it's Vegas, Miami, and they're just trying to have a good time. And so, I mean, if you're a local here, I don't really go to Old Town that much anymore. I think it's more, the move is more downtown or just the other places where it's a little bit more chill and it's like locals. You're just getting like those old golf guys.
Yeah.
Weirdos are out. I don't know, just like frat guys, you know, because a lot of people have bachelor parties here and bachelorette parties here too. So it's a different scene for sure.
Yeah, so you're going to have to probably find somebody from a different city if you want to get real with love, and meet them at the airport or something, you know, because here, I don't know. Good luck.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we want to do is just celebrate, you know, some of the influential Black leaders that have built our country. So I want to start off with Madam C.J. Walker, as we all, you know about her. She had a cosmetic, actually she had a hair care company. She ended up building a really big empire and was a cosmetic millionaire. And then also Jeremiah Hamilton, known as Wall Street's first Black millionaire. He was a highly successful broker. O.W. Greeley, the founder of Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma, also known as the Black Wall Street. And then Janice Bryant, I believe it's Howard. She's the founder of Act One Group, which is she was the first Black female CEO to lead a $1 billion company, actually in LA. And I know all about her. So we have a lot of, influential, Black entrepreneurs that have really built our country, that we should be proud of, and we can learn from and hopefully inspire us to, do the same.
No, I love that. So we're just going to real quick talk about just the rise of Black owned businesses. Social media is really amplifying Black voices just in the space in general. What even I see in like just the beauty space and how shade ranges and stuff like that have changed because Black women have, said, hey, I tried this and it's not, they need to amp it up with these shade ranges. So there's just so many things happening. How do you feel about the rise of social media amplifying Black voices, and what have you seen from social media that's really been a conversation and it's kind of like taken off and made a change?
First of all, I'm so happy about it. I feel like that's the reason why we have these different shades, right, for makeup, and the reason why we have all these different hair care products, and the reason why, they're across the board. Things have changed because people have been vocal and they've shared their opinions and they've made videos, and now these companies have no other choice but to make these products. So for me, I would say like the biggest impact has been hair care products. I've been natural for, I don't know, like maybe 20 years now. And when I first started the process, as a little girl, I used to get perms and stuff. I think I got my first perm when I was like maybe like 12 or 11 or something like that. Because back then there were not a lot of hair care products that was really for us. Yeah. And so when I decided to go natural and wear my hair curly, still in the beginning, it was very hard for me to find, products that really worked for me. But because of social media and people, sharing their concerns and people starting to make like more videos of how to, do your hair and stuff like that, we saw a surge and all of these different brands pop up with all of these amazing products. And today, that's why I'm able to wear my hair curly and feel confident, because there's products out there, for our hair. Same thing with makeup as well, having the right blush on that's actually for your skin tone, the right foundation, concealers. There was a point in time when I was in high school, wearing makeup where I looked ashy because, MAC didn't have the right shade or, what have you. And so I'm happy about it, and I just want to continue to see it progress. How about you?
Yeah, no, I love to see it. Especially again, when you talk about the makeup stuff, it's really cool to see that, I can walk into Ulta or Sephora and there's shades for me. Because it got tough. You had to blend 3 different types of foundations and concealers to make it as close as possible to your skin tone. And now we're really seeing that I could walk in, get shade matched, get my perfect foundation. So I love seeing that on a local level. I love seeing all the Black owned businesses pop up. It's been really cool to see. And I'm being always put on to some of the best places. It's just really cool. Just even yesterday, I worked with a woman who's starting a new hair brand, for extensions, for Black women who work out. So I was part of that photo shoot. So the hair, I actually have the hair in now, is supposed to really help you with your workout. So it's actually, the hair's curly, but I actually got it straightened for the shoot. And, if I want to wash it, we'll just get back to its curly pattern. And so, it's supposed to just be kind of more workout resistant, workout friendly, because I know that's a big thing for us in our hair. Because I know I have a fresh sew-in and I'm not doing hot yoga. I'm not doing hot Pilates. I'm not doing anything that is going to get me to sweat. No sauna, no running. I'm like out of commission for sometimes weeks if I want to maintain my style.
That's why my hair is like this now.
So to know that, she's working on, changing the industry in that way is amazing. And I love to see it. I love to see the new things and, people emailing and DMing me about just like certain things they're working on, as a Black woman or a Black man. I'm like, yes, we're coming in. And it's so cool to see. And so I'm really excited. And I think the amplification of social media has been great, and I've been able to put on businesses and share them and seeing it from other people. It's been really cool.
Yeah, it really has. And for the Black businesses, they are booming. I see like so many different food trucks popping up and restaurants. And I just went to a restaurant yesterday. I don't remember the name. It's the Urban, that new restaurant. It's an Egyptian man. He owns it. Urban. Gosh, I forgot how to pronounce it, but it's so eclectic and beautiful. The food was so fresh. Everything was made with organic, natural ingredients, no seed oils, no sugars. I mean, like raw, just wonderful.
That's amazing.
Amazing. And so that's why I'm like, yes, I love to see this. Love it. So great things here happening, great things are happening here in Phoenix for sure.
In Phoenix, yeah. And just,
just in general.
In general, in the States and, across the world, we're really seeing the impact of, the Black dollar and, that like, hey, if you make products for us that actually work for us, we're going to spend money. Yeah. And it's been proven, it's been shown. And, it's just, I love to see it. And I'm excited for what's to come.
Me too. Yes. So we are going to wrap it up. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. And so some of our key takeaways today: Black history in AZ is real and rooted, as we learned about today. Black excellence is global and ongoing, and it's thriving. Representation matters, especially locally. And we are living Black history. We're living it every day.
Yeah, it just doesn't stop after February, we don't just honor Black history, we continue it.
So we're going to close with our affirmations. I honor my roots. I take up space boldly. I walk in purpose. My presence is powerful.
I love that. So if you like this episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Thriving Loudly. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. And support Black businesses locally and globally. And tag Black leaders and community members in the comments. We want to hear from them. So we love you guys and thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.